It's very large, it's strategic, and it's going to be critical to providing, future supplies. Big organisations, like to be able to plan in time periods of decades, and Ardea's projects provide that optionality, and I believe our time will come.
What's stopping these guys, whether they be gigafactories, automotive, coming in today? If they know this demand is coming, but they're not stepping in and saying, hey, right, let's do something now. I guess that's what investors want to know. What's slowing this down? Hello and welcome to Crux Investor. First of all, thank you very much for watching this video. If you like it, give us a thumbs up and leave us your comments. We do try to get back to absolutely everyone. And if you haven't already done so, please click the subscription button in the corner of the screen. And of course, if you want to see more videos like this one, click the notification bell. We spoke earlier today to Andrew Penkethman, the CEO of Ardea Resources. They're a Western Australian developer with nickel, cobalt and gold. Now, they talk about their Goongarrie project with us, and we try and understand how they're going to develop that thing into production. They're going to need a very large strategic partner by all accounts, as this is a laterite project. We talk about a lot of other topics too, so look in the description below. If there's anything in there that you particularly want to go to, click on the relevant timestamp and I'll take you to that part of the video. Anyway, let's hear what Andrew had to say. Hello, Andrew. How are you, sir?
Good, thanks. Great to be here.
Well, thanks for joining us. News story to us and our viewers and subscribers. So appreciate you taking the time. You're in Perth. You're in this relative safe haven of Perth, are you?
We're one of the most isolated cities in the world, and this time round it may work to our advantage.
Finally. Okay, well, why don't we kick off with a 1-minute summary of the business and then we'll pick it up from there.
Sure. Look, Ardea is a ASX listed company. We listed in February 2017. We're in a very fortunate position of having one of the largest nickel cobalt resources in the developed world. All of our projects are located in Western Australia, which just got voted by the Fraser Institute as the #1 operational jurisdiction in the resources space. We're very proudly West Australian. Our flagship Goongarrie Nickel Cobalt project's only 80 kilometres north of the city of Kalgoorlie, Boulder, and the rich mining history there. All of our projects are in the eastern goldfields, and in addition to the nickel cobalt laterite, we've got major gold bearing structures passing through the majority of our projects, and the same komatiite host rocks that have been weathered to produce the nickel cobalt laterites are also prospective for nickel sulphides. So large nickel cobalt resource, critically important for the EV revolution. Large major gold bearing structures passing through the basement rocks, exploration just sparking up for that, and nickel sulphide potential as well. So we've got a lot to offer.
You sound quite pleased. You sound quite pleased about that. Okay, well, thanks for that summary. I'm always interested in understanding the the business plan. The what is it that you're trying to do, and the strategy for delivering that, and who's going to deliver it, and when, and what's going to cost you. So I want to kind of get into that, if I may. But one thing I do want to discuss before we do that is the Godolphin Resources spin-off, which you did just before Christmas. Can you tell us, what was that about? Why did you do that?
Sure. So we had a large project portfolio in New South Wales, consisting of about 3,200 square kilometres of tenure in the Lachlan Fold Belt. Central New South Wales, it's a very well mineralised part of the world, number of different styles of mineralisation, porphyry, gold copper systems. I guess the best example of that is Newcrest's flagship operation, Cadia Ridgeway mineral system, recent large porphyry gold copper discovery by Alkane called Boda. with our tenure, or Godolphin's tenure now, it was all targeted based on large-scale deep crustal structures that are the plumbing system for these mineral systems. There were porphyry targets defined on the Molong volcanic belt. That's the Copper Hill East project now for Godolphin. There's large gold systems that are related to the Godolphin fault, and we've got Regis's McPhilney's deposit plus 1 million ounces. We've got other explorers had recent intersections of about 100 metres at about 4 grams per tonne on that same structural architecture. Godolphin have a very large tenement base over the sort of gold and base metal trends, and their flagship project example there is Lewis Ponds. It was non-core to Ardea, having one of the largest nickel cobalt resources in the world. The best way to try and realise value from the New South Wales tenements was a new IPO with 30 million shares passed through in specie to existing Ardea shareholders. So it's a dividend in a way. All existing Ardea shareholders are able to share in the success of Godolphin and get those free shares.
It's a dividend if it's above water. But why do it that way? Like, why did you look at farm outs? What were the other structures that you looked at rather than just go to complete spin out?
Yeah, there were a number of options available to Ardea with regards to the New South Wales tenements. And, we spoke to a number of potential cornerstone investors, and they all had particular ideas on specific projects, but not the whole tenement package. So whilst we could have done deals with a number of different companies, we thought the best value for our shareholders would be by keeping that entire tenement package together. And whilst there's a huge amount of interest in exploration in the Lachlan Fold Belt in New South Wales now, that's more on the back of recent exploration success. And we decided to go down the path of the Godolphin spin out before the discovery of the Boda porphyry by Alkane and some other more recent exploration success by other explorers. So we think the timing's been tremendous, and it's proof of concept of the prospectivity of that whole region.
Okay, so I guess your shareholders are kind of keen to see what Godolphin does with their 7.5 million Aussie dollars in terms of being able to create value. The moment, I guess a lot of people are going to blame the market, but their shares are down around 18 cents at the moment, so no one's making money today. But what's your expectation of what they may be able to do? In fact, what's your relationship with the management team there? How did that come about?
The management team were put in place through a standard recruitment process, and looking for high caliber team to help manage that whole process moving forward. So Godolphin were admitted on the ASX on the 16th of December and started trading on the 18th. So it's now a completely independent company. The Ardea team worked very hard to get it to that point, but it's now very much with Godolphin, and we don't have a say in the day-to-day management of that company.
But it's interesting. So you selected the individuals. I get that they're now independent, but it wasn't an existing management team looking for a project. It was you identified individuals and put the team together. Is that the way it worked?
That's right, and we had a core team, to really motivated project geologists, who were Ardea employees, and that they were basically running the field programs and the face of Ardea in and around Orange. And they've obviously moved on to Godolphin, but they were the core nucleus, if you like, and starting point of the entire Godolphin team.
That's really interesting. I mean, I'm fascinated by this because it's like, you pick the team, they've raised $7.5 million. The G&A is whatever the G&A is, and the exploration plan is whatever that is, but you've got no control or no say in that anymore. So you're very reliant on that team being able to find or succeed with the drill, and hopefully then be able to raise money. Like I say, they're underwater at the moment, but hopefully at some point that'll come good. But it is exploration risk, albeit in a highly prospective area you're suggesting. So you have full confidence, I guess, is the question I want to throw at you. Do you have full confidence in their ability to make something of that?
Yeah, I think we need to look at things in light of, say, the coronavirus impact on global equity markets. So given that they only started trading on the 18th of December, the share price has got as high as, I think, 29 cents. They're just underwater at the moment. And, we've seen that, most companies have been hit pretty hard by the current global uncertainty, and I believe that they'll certainly do far better than tread water and continue to gain momentum with high impact news flow, using the money raised, the 7.5 million you referred to, and putting money into the ground and letting the results do the talking. They've already put out some high impact releases, very encouraged by the new targets generated at the Goongarrie Gold Project. Very high impact surface copper anomalism, native copper recognised at Copper Hill East prospect. So some really good indications, proof of concept of why the targets were selected, and following up on those and letting the drilling do the talking.
Okay, well, and you've got 15 million options at 25 cents. So at some point that may create some money for you, or at least the ability to monetize that at some point, one would hope. But let's park that for now. I guess we will keep watching that, as your shareholders will, eagerly to see how those boys get on. So let's get back to you. So the game plan in February 2017 was what? How did this thing start?
Yep, so brand new ASX listing. Ardea was a spin out from the parent company Heron Resources, and Heron made the corporate decision to focus purely on New South Wales and development of their Woodlawn base metals operation, and all the majority of other projects were spun out into Ardea Resources. So again, a very large tenement mix here in the goldfields, Western Australia, and also the Godolphin tenements that we just spoke about.
Because I think between Vale and Heron, there's about 50 million bucks been spent, about 400,000 meters drilled. So there's a lot of data which you've inherited as part of this. Is that correct?
Exactly. So invaluable context and invaluable information. So for a junior resource company, we've now got over a million meters of drilling in our database, and it really gives us a strong competitive advantage. We're not a company starting from scratch with greenfields project with very little known. We can use that existing data set to continue to enhance and add value to all of our projects and open new opportunities, such as historically we on the nickel cobalt laterite projects, we might have had nickel, cobalt, iron, silica, aluminium assayed for, and not many other elements. We run a 61 element assay suite. So with all our new drilling, but also we can go back to what's called the pulps. So that's the leftovers from assay samples that were collected, in some instances it could be 20 years ago, by the likes of Vale and Inco, and we can resubmit those to the assay laboratory that run our full 61 element suite and look at gold pathfinders, nickel sulphide pathfinders, and it's our belief that there's discoveries in that data waiting to be made, and that's a process we're going through at the moment.
Okay, so they've built this off the back of they knew what they were walking into because there's a lot of data available, and they thought this could be significant, and you understand the nickel cobalt grades, and which are great grades, by the way. These are very good grades, and the scale of the project as well is known to you, and it's a large project. I mean, why did they bring you in, or why were you approached to a year ago to get involved?
Yeah, there was a transition period for the company where we had our chair, Katina Law, was in a executive chair position. Ian Buckhorn still was a full-time technical director, and that felt there was a need to bring in a CEO to assist in the management of the company, and that's where I came in.
Okay, and yes, I mean, Katina, she's buying shares at the moment, so she's obviously very into it. But what did you see at the time? What was the opportunity as you saw it, and what were they not doing before you came along?
Look, what really appealed to me was all Australian projects and the large strategic resource base with the nickel and cobalt, but also the outstanding exploration potential. I'm a geologist. I've maintained a number of different roles throughout my tenure in the resources sector, but I could really see the prospectivity here. Very much attracted to the addresses. Lachlan Fold Belt in New South Wales, Eastern Goldfields here in Western Australia. So they're world class mineral provinces, and the prospectivity, the large tenement position, the very tight capital structure. No, it was a very attractive proposition, and very grateful to be given the opportunity.
What was your track record before? I mean, have you gone into companies in a similar role for a similar sized company and either turned them around or created value? Just give me a sense of that. I couldn't find too much on your history.
Sure. So look, for 7 years before commencing with Ardea, I was working for a private company, evaluating resource projects around the world in a number of different styles of mineralisation. Prior to that, I was involved in ASX listed Extract Resources, and was part of the team that helped Extract make the transition from a penny dreadful to an ASX top 100 stock with the discovery of the Rossing South, or as it's known now, Husab uranium project in Namibia. And that experience to see the transition from a struggling junior resources company to such a large organisation was just invaluable. And I see a lot of analogies. Husab or Rossing South was a very large strategic mineral resource, and I can see the synergies here with Ardea's Goongarrie and Kalgoorlie Nickel projects. It's very large, it's strategic, and it's going to be critical to providing future supplies. And big organisations, like to be able to plan in time periods of decades, and Ardea's projects provide that optionality, and I believe our time will come.
I bet you're glad to be out of the uranium space at the moment.
Yeah, that was fantastic experience at the time. I started my career in the goldfields of Western Australia, and I'm very happy to be back here, living and working in Western Australia, and I love WA gold.
So just the way you're describing it to me, I don't know what you did at HSEP, but it wasn't a managerial position in the sense you weren't running or board director level. It was building out the resource and the scale of the opportunity there. And then you've been in the private sector, but have you got public market experience of building up exploration companies, or are you looking at it, or have you been brought in to look at it from the technical perspective with your geological background? I mean, where do you sit in the organisation in terms of what you're bringing to the table?
Sure. Look, certainly at Extract and roles before that, there's very much a strong corporate focus. So I sort of helped lead the strategic partner team there, assisted with a lot of the investor relations work, dealing with our shareholders. And we had a transition with a managing director who was Australian-based. Moving on, and then the new managing director being based in London, but our primary listing was still on the ASX, and I certainly worked with the team to take on board a lot of those responsibilities of it being a ASX listed company and involved in corporate roadshows, shareholder liaison, company presentations at major conferences, etc. So no, all that experience is very relevant, and similarly with roles prior to that.
Okay, so can we talk about money momentarily? Okay, because I'm looking, the market cap's around, well, as of this morning, about 46 million, or this afternoon, 46 million Aussie. Obviously taken a bit of a hit since you did the Godolphin spin out. Again, maybe market conditions, or is it?
Yeah, look, I think very much market condition related. Looking at our peer companies, they're all sort of well down at similar levels, and some of our investors, see Ardea as a proxy for nickel and cobalt, but as I'll articulate during this discussion, I believe we're a whole lot more than that as well. But yeah, nickel and cobalt prices are currently depressed. We've got the coronavirus uncertainty. So, obviously I'd prefer to see the share price a lot higher than it is. But yeah, we're in a similar boat to our peers at the moment.
Okay, and how much cash have you got at the moment?
Yeah, we had 10.7 million at the end of the December quarter, and we'll be putting out an update in our March quarterly report that'll come out during April.
And what was your monthly burn on average for the last quarter of 2019?
Yeah, so look, at the moment, our burn rate's sort of varying between, in the current budget, between 1.2 and 2 million per quarter, just depending on the activities underway at that point in time.
Okay, so that gives us a sense of where your cash position is at the moment. So what are the plans with that money? What are you doing at the moment, and what are you going to be doing in Q2 of 2020? Sure.
So look, the focus for us at the moment, Sarah, we've got some feasibility study work streams ticking along in the background on Goongarrie, aimed at adding further value. Identifying the best quality water. We know we've got sufficient water to develop the project, but the better the quality, it has flow-on effects for lower capital and operating costs. We're doing more work on our in-pit neutraliser and also our high-grade mine strategies. So we've got projects such as highway, less than 30 kilometres trucking distance, Siberia North, that are going to be brought into our high-grade mine strategy. And it's our contention that we can maintain feed grades well in excess of 1% for a minimum of 15 years and beyond that. So that sort of work stream's underway at the moment. And then really, really excited about re-evaluating the highway resource and evaluating the historical data. So our resource geologist just finishing off some work on the Goongarrie deposits, and he'll be moving on the highway shortly. But part of that process was evaluating the existing assay data, and I've seen some highly encouraging gold pathfinder results I can't say too much about it, because we've got the samples in at the assay lab, but we're aiming to to find orogenic gold and nickel sulphide targets out of that data as well. And once we've got the results, we'll be updating the market accordingly.
Okay, so you're spending money trying to be clearer about what you've got. It sounds to me like, are you a project pardon me, are you a project developer, or are you planning to get one or some or all of this into production yourselves?
Well, we're a project developer and we're an explorer. And I think that's one of our core strengths, because we've got that optionality.
Right. Okay. So good. So that positions it for me. So with this, you're sitting on a lot of land with a lot of prospects. Nickel, cobalt, the right area for the EV revolution. I think everyone's a buyer of the macro. It's a question of timing for that, and I get the gold component. But can we talk about how you plan to move the company forward? So if you're a project developer / explorer, you have stated that you are in discussions, but you won't be rushed into finding a strategic partner.
So with the strategic partner process, we maintain 100% of our offtake, and that's quite deliberate. We could have signed or committed the offtake multiple times in the past, but that's got to be linked to funding commitments. We acknowledge we need a large partner to develop Goongarrie, so they have to come in with the funding commitments, and they can earn an equity stake in the project as well. And presumably from their perspective, they're going to want that linked to offtake, because that's the end game. So that's sort of one core area of the organisation, and we're working closely with KPMG on that process.
And when you say large, because you're laterite rather than sulfides, right? So that suggests very big numbers indeed, which must restrict the number of partners that you can possibly talk to. How long have you? So when did KPMG get involved, and how long have they been having discussions with potential strategics?
Yeah, look, the strategic partner process has been running for a bit over a year now, and you have discussions with various groups, different jurisdictions around the world, and it could be very large mining companies, large gigafactory manufacturer, EV or traditional vehicle manufacturer, but obviously they're all transitioning into the electric vehicle space, and internal combustion engines, very much in decline. There's strong interest in the project. The partners that we're talking to, they're not rushing off and saying, gee, well, we'll go and do a deal. There's been no one else has done a large deal in this space. And I think the realisation with the nickel supply crunch is going to put pressure on various organisations to enter these agreements, and a large part of it's that they're changing the mindset that you're not going to go down to the shop and you're not going to be able to buy a loaf of bread, litre of milk, or the nickel you need to go into your batteries. You're going to be forced to partner with companies like Ardea and develop projects like Goongarrie to secure that supply. It's all about security of supply and pricing. And our largest base case has been 2.25 million tonne per annum project, which in nickel metal production terms, let's just sort of round it off. But, it's in the realms of sort of 18 to 20 million, 18 to 20,000 tonnes of nickel metal per annum. But, most of the organisations we're talking to want 40 to 50,000 tonnes of nickel metal equivalent per annum. So we could commit to the detailed DFS at those scales, and then they'll turn around and say, well, actually, we need 4 or 6 million tonnes per annum. So we think it's incredibly important that we get the strategy right from the start, so that we select the optimum strategic partner and we agree on the project scale and also the end product specification. Do they want a sulfate product or a mixed sulfide precipitate or mixed hydroxide precipitate? So there's a lot to it, and you could burn through a lot of engineering and a lot of money on engineering that isn't fit for purpose.
Yeah. So where are you with that process? Because if I listen to the way that you describe the Godolphin spin-out process, you're very careful about what you want to do and how you go about doing that, and that's great. For something like this, the nickel market has had its issues in the last year or so, and I think it's got in a bit of a dip at the moment because of oversupply in the market from scrap, etc. And the corona hasn't helped. But what's stopping these guys, whether they be gigafactories, automotive, or some of the big nickel guys coming in today? If they know this demand is coming, you've got a lot of data, but they're not stepping in and saying, hey, right, let's do something now. Are you slowing it down, or are they unsure about the market? And how much more do you need to do before you can actually say, okay, this is the construction of the agreement that we're happy with. This is the partner that we're happy going with. What are the holdups? I guess that's what investors want to know. What's slowing this down?
Look at that. These processes do take time. I mean, the last direct example I was in took 3 years. There were some of the largest mining companies in the world on the share registry, a number of very large organisations buying on market. It was a jostle for control, and it was a hot commodity price cycle, and it still took 3 years. So you got organisations that tend to be quite large, tend to be bureaucratic, and you've got to go through various layers of due diligence. You've got to build relationships. So I can't say to you today, it's going to take 3 months. Yeah, I can't tell you how long it's going to take, other than saying the process is continuing, and we believe it's just a matter of time.
Okay, so these are big billion-dollar plus companies. You're a $46 million company today. You're not really in control of timing and those discussions, other than being able to show them what you've got, right? You've got high-grade nickel cobalt and of a meaningful size, or certainly enough to be interesting to them. How much more money do you need to spend on the nickel cobalt projects to be able to, speed up or try and start having some influence on the timing of these discussions? Or are you just a sort of passenger in all of this?
Well, there's the DFS or feasibility study work streams that we continue on in the background, where it's going to help advance the project once the strategic partner is selected. But, we have to be measured in our budget allocation with that work. We don't want to burn through all our cash at once. We've got a fantastically tight capital structure, just over 117 million shares on issue. We're well funded. So we just got to operate prudently on those work streams, and knowing that we need to work with the strategic partner to define the optimum process capacity and product specification and the like. But countered with that is looking at the other opportunities available to us in addition to that to help maximise project value, and that's very much the gold exploration and the nickel sulphide exploration. So we could sit still and do nothing, or we can look at the incredible strategic ground position we've got with major gold bearing structures and also nickel sulphide potential, and go, well, gee, this hasn't seriously been looked at, or no one's seriously looked at this for 2 or 3 decades. So that's a great opportunity to us. So we're not just the nickel cobalt, that's first and foremost, but by the way, don't forget the gold, don't forget the nickel sulphide, and that's certainly exploration opportunities that we're currently accelerating.
And I do appreciate that. You've got lots of optionality, which is great. But again, we've had a few companies come on here recently this year and tell us that they don't necessarily need to follow the conventional rules of doing a PFS, an FS, a DFS, that they're able to get in offtake agreements or funding at very early stages, PEA in one case, pre-feasibility study in another. But as far as you're concerned, what I'm hearing is you're going to follow the conventional process, get to DFS stage, at which point you obviously know more about the economics and have advanced the strategic partner conversations to the point where you can make a decision. Or do you see the ability to get an offtake in place before the DFS?
I very much see the optionality to get offtake in place before the DFS. I mean, we have completed PFS studies that demonstrate a viable project development. So, and that's the information that the strategic partner process is reviewing, and it's out in the public domain. So we're quite comfortable with that. For a large project development, presumably as that large partner, we've got to agree on the project scale and end product specs, which then is tied into the DFS. So it's all very much intertwined, and you want to ensure the optimum development of the project, de-risk it, make sure that everything is developed on time, within budget, and that your ramp-up process is as seamless as possible. And some of the other projects you mentioned, I can't comment on, but it's all about de-risking the project. And if you want to operate to best global standards, you've got to take into account things like the Equator principles, operating, minimising the environmental impact. We're taking all those things into account in our project development, and that'd be reflected in the DFS. And if perhaps a strategic partner would fund the project 100%, or you'd need presumably to work with export credit agencies and the like to secure funding for that project development, and no bank or ECA, they're going to want to know that everything's been done to the likes of the Equator principles, and that you have completed definitive feasibility studies. So if it's a very small project, maybe you can get away with not completing that detailed work, but no, certainly in my experience, you have to do that.
Okay, and for the shareholders, I'm just trying to think of the shareholders again. You've been on a bit of a slide since the Godolphin project, and you've explained maybe some of the reasons why. So when does this thing start picking up, and what are the causes of that going to be?
Yeah, so look, we've got the value-adding feasibility work streams, and there'll be various updates. We've got the assay results coming through from the pulps at Highway, and as I mentioned, we're looking forward to getting those and defining gold and nickel sulphide targets and following up with drilling. We've got our exploration team active on the target generation front. On the nickel sulphide side, we're working with well-respected industry consultants, New Exco, on target generation. And again, there'll be news flow on that in the not too distant future. A, on the targets, and B, the follow-up work planned. And then on our Bardock tectonic zone, so that's the gold-bearing structural architecture that runs under our Goongarrie project. So it's a northern strike extension of the Boulder Lefroy fault, which is responsible for hosting millions of ounces, St Ives in the south through Kalgoorlie, the super pit, with very well documented major gold bearing structures. On our projects along the Bardock tectonic zone, they tend to be under alluvial cover, or the laterite profiles developed on top of it, so it obscures the basement rocks which contain the gold mineralisation. We've got a lot of very detailed geophysics. We've got an outstanding exploration team, and we've got multiple targets being generated, and we'll commence drilling those in the very near future. Be strong news flow from that work. And just to give an example of the proof of concept of the Bardock tectonic zone gold fertility, we announced some results from Big Four. So that area sort of crops out at surface. It was found by the prospectors. We followed up with some drilling, and just last week, some headline results like 18 metres at 13.38 grams per tonne, 20 metres at 2.91 grams per tonne. They're very significant results. So for us, it's proof of concept with the Bardock tectonic zone prospectivity, and we're certainly looking forward to following up on those results and maintaining that strong pipeline and news flow. And with the Australian dollar gold price at record highs, it's a great option to have, and there are very few companies in that position. Globally significant nickel cobalt resource, 65 kilometres of strike of major gold bearings.
There's a lot of optionality there for you. There's a lot of variables as well, and to take advantage of all of this, the nickel cobalt prices need to recover somewhat, one suspects, and if you can get into gold production and the Aussie gold price is still high, then you can take advantage of that. But those are some way off. It seems to me. I've been fascinated listening to you today. There's all these moving parts, and how do you compartmentalize them enough for people to understand what the plan is for each? But I do appreciate the overview today from you. Exciting times for you. You've got a lot to do. I hope that some of these events are the catalyst for change in your share price and your fortunes, because no one wants to be raising money at this share price, I suspect, in the organisation going forward. But thank you for today. Great first introduction. If you could come back and let us know how you're getting on in next quarter, that'd be fantastic. I think there's you've got a lot of adoring fans on the chat room, so I seem very pleased with what you're doing. Let's hope the share price recovers for them too.
Absolutely. We'll continue to focus on our projects and adding value, and certainly watch this space with the news flow, and look forward to staying in touch.